think one of the problems we have today in talking about how the gospel is rooted in grace versus works, and it's not about works, is that we've begun to really misconstrue this idea into meaning that the gospel is not about righteousness, that it's about this removal of the expectation of living righteously. So it's important for us to talk about why are works not required? Like, why is God talking about how works are not a requirement? And that's because works don't have any real power of righteousness. And that's why God is saying that it's not about works, it's about grace. Because works, let's take for example something like circumcision. Let's say circumcision was like cutting a scar into the back of your hand, and you had the scar for your whole life, and that was your mark of being set apart to God. If a person does that in an act of faith, and they're doing that because they have a heart of real devotedness towards God and a real sincerity towards God, then that faith is what makes that mark meaningful. But the mark itself doesn't do anything. And the deception that has happened throughout history is where people can get so caught up in these outward things, failing to understand that it's that inward faith, it's that inward reality of righteousness, that inward reality of love and godliness, those things being what is real religion and not these outward works. A good example of this is in Romans 2:28 through 29. For no one is a Jew who is merely one outwardly, nor is circumcision outward and physical, but a Jew is one inwardly, and circumcision is a matter of the heart, by the Spirit, not by the letter. His praise is not from man, but from God. It's talking about the inward reality of faith and the inward integrity of faith, and saying that's what matters. That's what is true religion. Whereas these outward things, they have no power for true religion. If I light a candle, or I light incense, or I, offer up an animal sacrifice, those things are not in and of themselves righteous, but it's only the faith that is offering those things. It's only the real sincerity towards God in those things that matters. And so this is what God is pointing at with faith. This is what God is saying, why faith is so important. But today we have these ideas about faith where it's becoming, we live by faith and not by righteousness, not by works. But what we're saying in works is not that, not what I've just discussed here. We're saying that God no longer requires righteousness. And this is completely contrary to the foundation of the gospel, the whole purpose of the gospel, which is to bring us in to righteous living, to really cleanse us, and to take us out of being satisfied in some outward acceptable form that we are pleased with, where we think, well, good enough, well, moral enough, well, whatever enough, and to really get us to face sin and really get us to face what is a real standard of integrity, because that's what's difficult. What's difficult is to get people to inwardly see what real integrity is, and to do it. You can see something like, you can see this in like Isaiah 58, where these people are going around and they're doing these like religious activities, but it's never really getting at the heart of what is right, what is fair, what is just. And that's the concern. So the gospel is not about removing that. It's the whole conversation is surrounding working that and really confronting us in our hard-heartedness and our unwillingness to really fully consider what is fair and just and good and do it. That's what faith is about.